Welcome to 2 Hours No Traffic, a New York, Philadelphia sports show. We are your hosts. I'm Spen Harris. He's Philly Brandon. And we have a new sponsor for the podcast. That's right, Spenny Sandwiches. It's my own personal sandwich review brand. For my birthday, my little brother got me a sweatshirt. It's got a big sandwich on it. It's a Spenny Sandwiches. It's not a storefront. You can't buy any sandwiches here. But if you live in New Jersey, you want to know some good sandwiches in the North Jersey area, check me out on Instagram and TikTok. What do you think of Spenny Sandwiches being the new sponsor of the show, Brandon?
So one of the checks rolling in. The way I'm told, sponsorships usually mean dinero.
Yeah, see, so I've given the money to the podcast, but then I put it back into the show. So you're not going to see any actual cash because it's just going to keep going back into the show in the form of sandwiches that I eat every single week for lunch.
So being a part of the show and, I would say an integral part of the show, I would then see the money going back into the show because, as stated previously, I'm part of the show.
Here's the negotiation.
Like a Ponzi scheme
I will buy you one sandwich per month, and you can get meat on it.
What other sandwiches would I? Are people out there eating non-meat sandwiches?
Just like a caprese, like a little tomato, a little mozzarella, a little olive oil.
This is America, damn it! I'm not getting a vegetarian sandwich.
All right, well, talked enough about sandwiches for one day. Let's get into some sports, Brandon. What are we talking about today?
Well, we were off last week. Well, you and I weren't off. We were doing a guest appearance over on Happy Hour Hoops, and great show, great pod. We did about an hour on the Eastern Conference playoffs and our teams, which we'll talk about today. You and I didn't get a chance to talk about it with our audience, but I got to do a little bit of football. It's been a lot of basketball lately. So talk to me about the G-Men. Talk to me how free agency's going. From what I've seen on the outside, obviously re-signing Daniel Jones was big. I haven't seen a lot of high-profile additions. I have seen some subtractions, though. Julian Love heading out west to Seattle. He was kind of an anchor on that secondary. So, what's the overall temperature for the G-Men free agency?
So I'm a grader, right? I like to grade things A through F. Every year that Dave Gettleman was the general manager, I would usually give him like a D minus F. But Joe Schoen is not Dave Gettleman. Joe Schoen is smart. He knows what he's doing. Him and Brian Daboll seem to work together. They're a cohesive unit. Having said that, I'm going to give them a B minus so far. I don't necessarily think that they've had a bad offseason. I mean, I think signing Daniel Jones, getting Saquon Barkley back, however you're able to get him back. You re-signed Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton comes back. You re-signed Sterling Shepard to sort of a prove-it deal. You trade for Darren Waller. That's probably the high-profile name that Giants fans have wanted to see, one of the best tight ends in the league. And you sign, Paris Campbell, who's an okay receiver. So that's on the offensive side of the ball. And, I like the addition of Waller. We had Evan Ingram for a few years. Last year, we were kind of bereft at tight end. Now we had, one of the better tight ends in the game in Waller. But like you said, not a lot of huge changes to an offense that was pretty average last year. By the way, Barkley got the franchise player non-exclusive franchise tag. That was the tag that he got. So I don't hate it, but I give him a B minus. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think B minus is fair. I would have liked to have seen, not me as an Eagles fan, but just for the sake of this podcast, I would have liked to have seen the Giants take a couple more big swings. Just because it still doesn't feel to me that it's Eagles, Giants, Cowboys. I think there was a real chance to overtake Dallas in the offseason because building off your momentum. But I still think you're equal to, if not a little bit beneath Dallas right now still. And I don't know. I was excited for you guys. And, the coach, ahead of schedule, should have made the playoffs and did. This seemed like the year to take a couple of big swings and try and, make a run at the division. But it was a more reserved approach, which, like I said, Joe Shea knows what he's doing. I think he's a good GM, but I would have liked to have seen him revamp the offense more than they did.
Wait, I forgot to mention we also signed former Jets wideout Jeff Smith.
Cool.
That was cool. that was kind of the
Not
joke.
concerned.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. All right, what yeah, there's not much else to say about the Giants. What do you got for the
kept
Eagles?
it pretty quiet.
You wanna talk a little Philly offseason, Mr. Philly Brandon?
Yeah, this one's a little bit more in depth because we've lost a lot. It hasn't been the horrible offseason that I think some casual football fans would consider it to be. I work with a lot of them, and it's a constant deluge of, oh my God, you guys lost everybody. Who's coming back? What, you guys aren't going to be the same? We're going to be fine. Like, look at the guys we lost. TJ Edwards hurts for sure, and TJ Gardner-Johnson hurts. Other than that, we were ready to lose anyone else we lost. Jordan Smith is going to come right in and take over in the interior defensive line. Nakobe Dean is going to be able to play that Kaiser White role, no problem. We got both corners back on nothing deals. I mean, I think Darius Slay's making $3 million this year. James Bradbury's a shade over $4 million. They took really heavily backloaded deals to come back and make the money work. Who is it? I like the Greedy Williams signing as a cornerback. I think he'll be a really good depth piece. I think he starts on a lot of teams, just not on this one. And we got some linebacker help from the Bears. So I think Howie's done a good job of minimizing the losses and having contingency plans in place. Losing Isaac Seumalo on offense. Again, great player, been here for 6 years. We're going to miss him. Cam Jurgens is right there. He's ready to go. So we've had a plan for losing all the guys that we've lost.
I'm upset that you didn't mention the Marcus Mariota signing. That might be my favorite Philadelphia Eagles offseason signing. I love a little Scariota. And also
That's
Rashad
just fun
Penny.
because Chip Kelly couldn't get him. And what's it, if you're not familiar with the Chip Kelly, Howie Roseman drama, is when Chip came in, he wanted total control. We were a lost franchise, so we gave it to him. This guy's supposed to save us. We booted Howie to this support staff role on the football operations side. He was in a closet essentially. And Chip went out, couldn't get Mariota, grenaded the team. We bring Howie Roseman back. He goes nuclear, builds a Super Bowl team twice. And now he gets the guy that Chip Kelly couldn't find a way to get. So the Howie Roseman revenge tour is full steam ahead.
What do you think about the Rashad Penny signing?
I like it. I like Miles Sanders a lot. We were never going to pay him. And he didn't, don't get me wrong, he didn't make a bag. Running backs never do. But I think he's making around $5 million a year before incentives and all in Carolina. Our running back room this season costs a shade over $4 million. The whole room. I'm fine with that. Rashad Penny is an animal when he's healthy. I think behind our O-line, he'll be healthy. Seattle hasn't had a good line since Marshawn Lynch was there. So, I mean, he was taking way more hits than he will behind Jason Kelce, Lane Johnson, Jordan Mailata, like a generational line. And we have 3 running backs who are more than competent. I mean, Kenny Gainwell is going to get his touches. Boston Scott's going to get his. So, I think it's a really high upside, low risk signing, which is kind of what you want out of a running back.
I like it. I think Penny showed some flashes last year. And I like that signing.
Did you see his interview? I mean, he looks like a linebacker.
Yeah. What would you grade the Eagles offseason so far?
I'd probably say a B+.
Okay.
I think for me, in order to get an A, they needed to bring back CJ Gardner-Johnson. So by default, not bringing him back, you can't get an A. I think that was a little bit out of Howie's control. Because just from what I know about Howie Roseman, the fact that CJ signed somewhere else on a 1-year, $8 million deal, Howie brings him back. He's not an idiot. He offered him 12 on a multi-year deal early on. I think part of that was CJ felt disrespected or created some kind of narrative of disrespect, and he was like, I'm going to show them. I'll take another prove-it deal inexplicably after the best year of his career. And the Eagles weren't in the running after that, and that's fine. I mean, all the drama about, oh, you guys switched up on me and you guys weren't real friends or whatever, dude, missed me with that shit. Everybody in Philly wanted him back. The only person who didn't want to be back in Philly was CJ.
All right, and there you heard it. B+ from Philly Brandon grading the Eagles offseason thus far. Do we want to talk about Aaron Rodgers in the Big Apple now with the New York Jets? Not yet, but it's going to happen.
That's the fun part. I think it happens. I think the Packers get a first-round pick in return. They want to. They're not going to get it. They don't have the leverage. I think this is going to flame out horribly if you're the Jets. You're now paying – you're doing what you should never, ever do. The Packers shouldn't have given that contract to begin with. The formula to win is to win with an inexpensive young quarterback and build a team around him. The Jets had that. They had – I mean, not the quarterback. They had a young nucleus of guys they drafted. They blew it all up, and now they have Aaron Rodgers. I think he's still owed north of $100 million on that contract that they now have to deal with and find a way to build a team around the guy who's 39 making top 5 quarterback money.
Here's what this is like, Philly Brandon. It's like when you're the last one of your friends to get a gaming system, right? Like an Xbox came out a few years ago and everyone has had it and you've wanted it for years. And all of a sudden you finally saved up the money and you go and you get this gaming system and everyone's like, dude, that fucking system is so old. We're on to the next big thing. You know, this gaming system can do this. That's exactly what this is like. The Jets are getting Aaron Rodgers after however many years in Green Bay. Does he still have the potential to be great? Sure, he's coming off a bad year. And I just think it's such a trap that they're falling into. This is exactly how you don't want to build your football team. And the funniest part about this is they did this. They did this like 15 years ago with Favre, however long it was ago, when they got Brett Favre after Green Bay, and they decided that, you know, he would work in New York. And how did that turn out? He was gone within the next year. So I'm very excited to see this. Yeah,
I was too young to understand. You might have been right on the cusp of following sports close enough to get it. But do you know why that happened? He was in the same contract issue that Aaron Rodgers is in, where he's not a free agent. He can't choose destination, but he wanted out. He wanted to go to Minnesota more than anything, and there was no way the Packers were going to send him within the division. So they traded him to New York. He wrote out the contract with the Jets and skipped right on over to Minnesota where he wanted to be all along. I'm not saying it's a deal with Aaron Rodgers, but it is. I mean, the Jets have been through this before.
Right. And he still played decent football in the beginning for Aaron Rodgers and everything. So it'll be interesting. I think it's going to blow up in their face. Again, it's also similar to like, say it again.
You have the Jets in the playoffs this year?
I mean, right now they're on the cusp. I think they're the second best team in the AFC East. I think it's Buffalo and then them.
Miami.
I don't know if Miami's as good as they were last season. Like, I just don't.
2 is the big question mark. But I think Miami has the potential to be better. I just don't know what Aaron Rodgers you're going to get, because he went from a team in Green Bay where he, basically was constantly begging for weapons. And I think for the last, I don't know, up until 2 years ago, he had a great point. That team should have had 2 or 3 Super Bowls with him at quarterback, and it's the GM's fault that they didn't. But to come over to the Jets, where their receiving core is fine, it's not going to set the world on fire. Granted, Mecole Hardman was a big get from Kansas City. That helps a lot.
Saw that. That was nice.
But he's not going to a place loaded with weapons either. So I don't know why we should expect it to be any different. And if you're going to sign Aaron Rodgers to the deal that they did, this is a Nets type move when you went out and got Kyrie and KD. Right. Making the playoffs is just a byproduct. You don't make this move unless your end game's a title.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And just like, Kyrie in New York, it's going to be very interesting watching Aaron Rodgers deal with the media. This is a guy who does not like to be told things. He is very, I don't even know what the word is. He's cocky. He's arrogant. I mean, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the last 20 years. Don't get it twisted, but he's not someone who's easygoing, who answers questions politely. He's going to tell you how he feels, and that's just the way it is.
And
yeah,
the New York
I don't know.
media is going to be way more brutal than he was used to in happy old Green Bay, Wisconsin.
All right, he's a king in Wisconsin. Like, he's not a king here. He's just another guy. Until he wins the Super Bowl, he ain't Joe Namath with the Jets. Is what I'm saying.
No, hey, I'm right there with you. He's used to being a big fish in a small pond, and now he jumped in the Atlantic Ocean with, outside of neck and neck with Philly, I would say the most brutal sports media to deal with. And, I don't think Wisconsinites have a mean bone in their body. That's all New Yorkers know. It's just, anger and frustration.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you.
Speaking of angry, frustrated New Yorkers, the Eastern Conference playoffs are starting to come into shape. Your Nets just gave my Sixers a playoff berth, so for that I thank you.
You're not welcome.
But the whole up and down the East, there's not a team that I would face as a 3 seed, which is what we're slotted in as right now. I think actually we're the 2 seed now. But I think we'll finish the 3, where I feel, we're good. We got this for sure at a 7-game series. Miami, the playoff Jimmy's a dangerous thing to look at. No disrespect. I think the Nets in 7-game series you're not built that way at the moment, but they might be fun to get in.
There's no disrespect. Like, you don't even have to imply that you're not disrespectful. The Nets are the worst. If you look at the top 8 teams in the East, you can even go 10. I think the Nets are the 10th best team. I think the Raptors, the Bulls are better. I take the Hawks and the Heat over us, and obviously the Knicks. So, like, it's not a mean thing to say, hey, I think we'd probably get swept by you guys in the first round. Maybe we eke out a game at home. I can get into the Nets, but we're looking at the East as a whole. So if I'm you guys, I absolutely want to play us. After us, who would be that next team that you'd want to play?
So so that you were saying we play you in the first round, win, and then our second round matchup?
No, I was saying if you don't see it, like hypothetically, let's say you jump Boston somehow, and they get the 3 seed. Who is the next team you'd want to see after us in the first round? Like, if for some reason you don't draw us. I have the
okay. So if things move around slightly, so right now you're slotted in at the 6, the Heat at the 7, Hawks 8.
Raptors 9, Bulls 10.
Yeah, so that's your play-in field. I'd feel pretty comfortable against the Hawks. I think that two scoring point guard experiment has been a disaster. I also just think we're just so much bigger than Atlanta that I wouldn't worry about getting past them. For some reason, the Raptors, even though they're below 500, 35 and 37, they worry me more than both of those teams.
They gave you guys fits last year.
They do. They always do. They always play us tough because we're much like the Nets. We're not a scrappy team. We never have been. We never will be. That's all Toronto is, man. They're a little bit dirty. They're scrappy. They're tough, and they beat the hell out of us. We usually win, but it's by less than 5. And in a 7-game series, a couple of those could go their way. So they're probably of the bottom half teams I'd like to avoid Toronto.
Bottom half. Okay, that makes sense.
I think we're clear of the Heat the way it sits.
Okay. Did you hear your boy Tim Legler? I think he was on JJ Redick's podcast. Did you hear him talking nice about Joel Embiid?
Yeah, Tim Legler knows ball. He also has a slight local connection. His daughter, I believe, played at I think it was at Immaculata, which is a Philly suburb D3 school. So I actually saw Tim at a bunch of the games. But yeah, I think he's right. Everything he said about Joel was absolutely right. I mean, there are plays on the defensive end that you can look around the NBA and not one other guy can make. AD used to be able to make him perfectly healthy. He's either not interested in doing it or not able anymore. Nikola Jokic absolutely cannot do it. And Giannis, as athletically freakish as he is, doesn't have the instincts to do it. So I think, like I said, on the offensive end, most dominant scorer, equally great rebounder as Jokic, worlds better on the defensive end. I think he hit the nail on the head.
I also have a connection to Tim Legler.
Really?
The woman he was dating was friends with a person that my dad worked with. That's the connection.
Is that your roundabout way of saying Tim Legler dated your mom?
No. This is, I mean, that'd be cool. I'd give my mom a lot of credit. Tim Legler's a man rocket.
He's a good-looking dude.
What?
What?
He's a handsome guy. Handsome guy.
He is.
Easy. Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from it. Also, handsome guy with a great jumper back in the day.
I'm confident enough to say it. So, in your world, then, let's say the wheels don't fall off the bus and the Nets play 500 ball down the stretch. You probably figure into maybe the 7th seed in the East, maybe the 8th. Who do you feel comfortable with an upset? Who do you think you can knock off at the top?
Give me Boston. I think it'd be hilarious if we were able to give them a hard series. They've fallen off a little bit. I mean, I know they had a big win the other night against Minnesota. Let me see. Yeah, they beat Sacramento. That was the game, not Minnesota. I get those two teams confused. They won 3 out of their last 4 games. They did beat Minnesota in a close one. I think that with the way things have been trending, we have a shot against them. We're like the Celtics from a few years ago or even last year when they were super scrappy. I don't think there is as scrappy a team right now. I think we can match their toughness. We obviously don't have the scoring that they have in Brown and Tatum. We're not even close to that, but I think, the Bucks absolutely destroy us. I think you guys absolutely destroy us. I think Claxton actually has a really nice series against Boston. They don't have, Robert Williams is nice, but he doesn't stay on the floor. And I like our chances against Boston. That would be my upset pick.
Okay. And then just put yourself in my shoes for a minute here, because I know you follow the Sixers pretty closely too, and we talk about it all the time. Let's say in a magical world where my dreams come true, the Sixers make it to the NBA Finals.
Okay.
Looking at the field in the West, if you're a Sixers fan, who are you hoping to meet in the finals out of the Western field?
I guess, I don't know. You don't want Phoenix. You don't want to have to see KD and Booker. You don't want that matchup. Maybe Denver. I think it'd be very, very cool if we got a Jokic Embiid showdown in the finals, and Embiid was able to show, hey, you guys should have gave me at least one of these MVPs. Which actually, if I'm a Philly fan, I kind of hope that Jokic wins it. That's kind of my hope, because then it gives Embiid a little bit more motivation in the playoffs to just show everybody that they were wrong. I would say Denver, Memphis, Sacramento, any of those first 3 teams. I think the teams that you don't want to see, that list is shorter. You don't want to see Phoenix. LA is compromised now that Paul George is hurt. You saw that, right? Yeah, Paul George went down with injury. So, if that's a Kawhi Leonard, Russell Westbrook-led team, I'm not as scared of them anymore. And you never want to see Golden State in any sort of championship with Steph Curry. They're playing right now. I'm watching this game against the Mavericks. I think if I'm you guys, a Denver matchup would be pretty cool. And then there's a lot of interesting matchups within that game, right? You have Tobias Harris going up against Michael Porter Jr., similar players. Porter Jr. is much younger. You'd have Jamal Murray and Tyrese Maxey duking it out. And then you have James Harden, who really, I don't think Denver has a player who's like James Harden. I think Murray and Maxey, right? So if you want to say Murray and Harden cancel each other out, then you have Maxey. So if I'm Philly, that's a matchup that I would really like to see is Denver.
Yeah, I feel comfortable against Denver. Also, you're going to see another level of Joel Embiid that we haven't even seen yet, and we've seen him play some generationally great basketball, but to be on the national stage, maybe after getting snubbed for an MVP, who knows, but against Jokic, I think he averages 40 on that series. I think he hits a Hall of Fame Wilt Chamberlain level gear that I know it gets in there, because he still defers every once in a while. It's in there. Another one I would love to see is Memphis. I think Joel's personality matching up with that fake bravado that Memphis plays with. I can't stand Memphis. I everything about them drives me nuts. Dylan Brooks is Draymond Green without the track record to back up all the shit he talks. John Morant is who he is. And I think we match up well with them. Steven Adams is a big dude. I love Steven Adams. I think he's hysterical. I don't think it's any match for Joel Embiid. I think he cooks him 9 ways to Sunday. So Memphis is an easy dub, I think. Sacramento is another one. The 2 wings would scare me a little bit because we don't play great wing defense. But Domantas Sabonis being their 3rd star would not be a problem. I mean, I think Embiid would clamp him up pretty easily.
It's crazy. The more I look at the West, right? Like outside of the Suns and the Warriors, like who else really scares you? You have OKC in the 7th spot. OKC shouldn't even be in the playoffs. Like no one had them going anywhere this year. They're in the 7th spot right now. You have Dallas in the 8th spot, and I have a feeling that Dallas might not even make the playoffs. The way they're just, they're 2 guys. They're never healthy. They don't play together. Kyrie and Luka, I think they're 3 and 6 in their 9 games together. You have Minnesota sitting there at 9. I would like to see Anthony Edwards in an actual playoff series compete. I think that'd be cool. And then you have Utah at 10, and then LA. The Lakers are just sitting there at 11. They're on the outside looking in. And if LeBron comes back, I mean, LA as an 8th seed would be fun, man. Boy, I'll tell you. So, yeah, it's clearly one of those. It'd be a tough 8. It's clearly one of those years that the East are just much more dominant than the West. But you guys, yeah, as long as you don't draw Phoenix, I think like I'd be pretty confident as a Sixers fan.
Same. And we got 4 minutes left. And we brushed over this team twice, but I know if I was you, I would also want to take a victory lap here. The Dallas Mavericks, after making a blockbuster trade, trying to become a super team, they are 4 and 6 in their last 10, and they sit at a perfect 500 in the 8th seed in the West, the weaker division of the 2, while the Brooklyn Nets sit at the 6th seed in the stronger of the 2 divisions. That's got to feel at least kind of good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's funny, right? Like, so Kyrie said a few things. Kyrie, when he left the Nets, he's like, yeah, I left him in the 4th seed. That's what he said. And now we're the 6th seed. So obviously, and by the way, I think it was funny that Kyrie took credit for like keeping us in the 4th seed. It wasn't Kevin Durant when he was healthy. It wasn't the fact that like the Nets won, like, I don't know what the number was. I think it was like 12 or 13 straight games when KD was healthy. It was Kyrie. He was the reason. Here's what I love about this. Kyrie is averaging, I think, 28 points a game with the Mavericks. He was averaging like 27 points something with the Nets. He's a point better with the Mavericks. He's an assist better. He's averaging 6 point something assists with the Mavericks. He was averaging 5 with the Nets. So and he's shooting a higher field goal percentage in Dallas than he was in Brooklyn. So statistically, he's a better player in Dallas. But they just keep losing games. I think when he got there, they were the 4 or the 5 seed. They're the 8th seed in a jumbled West. He isn't playing tonight. He's had some leg stuff that he's been dealing with, if that's, true. And it's just, it's poetic justice is what it is, Brandon. It's karma. It's there's a higher being in the world. The Mavericks might not make the playoffs. And guess what? Kyrie's going to go to LA or Phoenix next year, and something bad's going to happen there too, because that's what happens when this guy comes to your team. From a basketball perspective, one of the best basketball players in the universe that was ever created. I don't think anyone in the league has better handles than Kyrie. I don't think anyone in the league has the finishing creativity that Kyrie Irving possesses. But he is not a winner. He won 1 championship when he was younger with LeBron James. He hasn't done anything since then. He came to Brooklyn. He came to Boston, ruined them for 2 years. Came to Brooklyn, ruined us for 4 years. Now he's in Dallas. He's not re-signing, this was one of the dumbest risks I think Mark Cuban's ever taken, and he's on fucking Shark Tank. Why he decided to go this route is beyond me. So yeah, I feel good about the Mavericks stinking, but as far as the Nets, I mean, I said it before, we're not really a competitive team in the East. Why aren't we competitive? Not enough scoring, to be completely candid with you. Mikal Bridges is great. I think, we were really quick to anoint him as king of Brooklyn very, very shortly after the trade went through because he had a few really good games. It was a rebound.
You missed KD. You needed to fill the void.
Yes. That's a great way to put it, Brandon. It was a rebound. But like every rebound, it doesn't really last the way you want it to. So he's coming down to earth a little bit. We've lost about, I think, 4 straight games. And he has just not really showed up in the second half, especially the fourth quarter of games, which means our best offensive player consistently in clutch has been Spencer Dinwiddie. And as much as I love the guy that has the same name as me, he's not really like a top 15 guard in the league. And he's our best offensive player. I can probably think of 14 guards that are better than Spencer Dinwiddie. And that's sort of being generous in that number. So
if you're counting ones and twos, like both guard positions each.
Yeah.
He's a top 15 point guard, I think.
Yeah, for sure. Top 15 point guard, but I'm just talking about guards.
Yeah.
Maybe he cracks top 20 guards. Maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Probably. I don't know. Probably in that 15 to 20 range. But he has been shooting really badly from three. And then that's the other part of the Nets. Now that they're a team of role players and 3-point shooters, they live or die by the three. And they have been shooting under 35% the last few games, which is not going to get it done in the NBA.
No.
Some of their top shooters, Curry, Joe Harris, Royce O'Neal, Dorian Finney-Smith, Cameron Johnson, all are not shooting the ball well. And you just can't win in the NBA if you don't hit the three, especially because we don't have that instant offense that we had before in Kyrie and KD. So a lot of it is ball movement, getting guys open shots. And if they're not, it's tough to depend on Royce O'Neal and Dorian Finney-Smith to hit huge shots for you in the playoffs. It just is. So that's where the Brooklyn Nets are right now.
And every team has that. I mean, every team gets hot and gets cold. What I'm realizing is, having those weapons to kind of get you through those cold spells is the difference between a good team and a great team. Because for the longest time, the Sixers were Joel Embiid and role players. We were fooled into thinking that Ben Simmons was a star. He never was. So that's what our offense was. It was Joel Embiid and role players. And you would see where we'd look like world beaters for 2 weeks when guys were hitting their shots. And as soon as that wasn't happening, the offense looked stagnant. Everyone was running into each other. We were putting up 95, 100 points a game. Now that we have James Harden and Tyrese Maxey, I'll watch games with the Sixers, and I'll look and be like, wow, this team sucks. The offense sucks. There's no creativity. Everything's disjointed. But you win because 3 guys can score enough to drag you through it.
That's the name of the game. It's funny, right? Like, I think those are the 2 types of personalities that great teams can take on. Either you're the 2015 Warriors and you're just a well-rounded bunch. And that was before Steph was Steph, right? That, you had Harrison Barnes that year, Iguodala, Clay,
Andrew Bogut.
You had so many guys. So that's one way. And then the other way is Kawhi on the Raptors. Hey, Kawhi, Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, if you guys don't score, we're going to lose. Okay, you guys score every single point. You have LeBron on the Lakers a few years ago. It was LeBron, AD, and then fill in, Kyle Kuzma, fill in Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, fill in all those guys. So those are the 2 ways to do it.
Think of the team that beat that. Kawhi's in part of a few of them. Yeah. Think of the Spurs team that beat that Miami team. That was Tony Parker on the way down, Manu Ginobili in his mid to late 30s, Tim Duncan in his late 30s, and a very young defensive specialist, Kawhi Leonard.
And the funny thing is, so Kawhi's been on both types of teams, right? Because if you look at those Spurs teams, those were the all-around, role players hitting threes type of team. Then when he was on the Raptors, it was like, hey, get the hell out of the way. Give Kawhi the ball. If it's not Kawhi, it's going to be Siakam or VanVleet. So that's funny. I didn't even realize that. But, listen, it's
he could score.
Yeah, exactly. I would prefer the all-rounded team when your best players are like Curry and Thompson or Tony Parker and Kawhi. Yeah, I mean, the problem with, the strategy that you guys are taking, that we took, the last 4 years, is who's going to be that other guy to help you out? Is it going to be Georges Niang? Is it going to be Daniel House? Is it going to be, Tobias Harris? Is he going to come through and actually play to his potential? Like, you have that question of who's going to be that next guy after Harden, Maxey, and Embiid. Whereas with the Warriors back in the day, you didn't really have that question because you knew that David Lee, Barbosa, you knew that all these different guys were going to come up and play big. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's an interesting discussion.
I'll leave it with this on the Sixers side of things, but if there is a silver lining to our situation that you just brought up, we're not relying. I mean, Georges Niang, I love him. If he's the reason we win the title, well, I gotta put this, but we won't win the title if he's the X factor. But our X factor isn't a 7th, 8th guy on the bench. It isn't a veteran who might have to dial it up one last time. It's Tobias Harris, which he's been frustrating. He's been up and down. He's been hard to watch at times. But if your X factor is a guy who signed a max contract, has had great seasons, typically averages between 18 and 20, and happens to be on a down year, that's one of the safer X factors that I would be comfortable taking on. Because he's done it. We've seen him do it. He carried a Clippers team to the playoffs. He's somebody who we're not wondering, can he find it within himself to do it? It's there. He's just got to find it again.
All right. I believe you. You convinced me. I'm a Tobias Harris believer now.
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'm just saying. As far as guys who might come out of the shadows to save you, there's been weirder ones.
Okay.
Well, that is all that I got on the Sixers. We did New York at nausea. We got a little bit of football going, and I have another podcast that I have to go pop onto. So,
what podcast is that? Share it with the world, Brandon. Shout them out.
Yes, I will be on the 302 Birds podcast at around 9:20 doing a special Sixers segment because they love the Eagles and they don't know a damn thing about basketball. So they had to call in the pros to cover their ass on that one. So I'll be with Dalton and the boys over on 302 Birds in about 20 minutes.
There you go. Brandon's a busy man. He's got another podcast. I have an adult men's league basketball game tonight at 10 p.m. So looks like we're both busy tonight.
Yeah, both busy. Both got stuff cooking. This has been 2 hours, no traffic. I'm Philly Brandon. That's Ben Harris, brought to you by both Spenny Sandwiches and the good people at Sideline Sports.
Thanks for listening, guys.